We begin with this Fox News alert. This is Fox News Tonight. I'm Harris Faulkner. The Justice Department has just indicted former President Donald Trump over his handling of classified documents after he left office. The former president announced this news just moments ago himself in a post on his social media platform, Truth Social. Here's the quote. "The corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I have been indicted, seemingly over the boxes hoax, even though Joe Biden has 1,850 boxes at the University of Delaware, additional boxes in Chinatown and D.C., and even more boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, and documents strewn all over his garage floor where he parks his Corvette, and which is secured by only a garage door that is paper thin and open most of the time." Trump also said he has been summoned to appear at the federal courthouse in Miami, Florida next Tuesday. Another quote. "I never thought it was possible that such a thing could happen to a former president of the United States. I am an innocent man," he added. "This is indeed a dark day for the United States of America." Matthew Whitaker is the former acting attorney general under former President Trump. He joins me now with reaction. First of all, just your initial reaction to what the former president just said. This is a dark day for this nation.
Yeah, Harris, good to be with you. It's a really sad day for our country. I mean, if you believe in the rule of law and if you believe in equal justice under the law, this should concern you because, you know, we have what appears to be a completely political prosecution of the former president, the current leader for the Republican nomination. And, you know, it was a rush to get him indicted. You know, you look at the other cases, compare this to Hunter Biden's case, Joe Biden's case, Vice President Pence's, and even, Hillary Clinton. And I can't see how the Department of Justice isn't explaining why they're doing this case and none of these other cases that I just mentioned. It's really a sad day, Harrison, and I think it's the stuff of banana republics, quite frankly.
You know what? I have to point out what the former president is saying about that garage with the papers strewn all over and the lack of classified document security at a current president's home. All of that is true. We have pictures of where the Corvette was parked. Yeah. We know that they found documents that weren't even told to the American public, weren't even told to anybody outside the Biden circle for months after they had been first found at the Penn Wharton University Penn with his name on it, that place at the campus, and then two of his homes, and then it was like an Easter egg hunt. I mean, every place you look, there were more documents. The president isn't wrong about complaining about that and saying that this is not fair.
No, and the other thing that Donald Trump also has on his side is he was president. He could have declassified these documents. That is going to have to be, I guess, litigated now. But also, you know, they were negotiating with the National Archives. They were trying to resolve this situation. And so it's very frustrating, I'm sure, for the president and his team to think that they were resolving this presidential records issue, and all of a sudden the FBI comes in and raids, and now we have a special counsel appointed by Biden's attorney general, really what appears to be doing political work under the auspices of a special prosecutor. It's very concerning, and I join a lot of Americans that kind of have a sinking feeling that this may be the best days of the United States may be behind us if this is how our political climate is going to be.
You mentioned that he could have declassified those documents. Do you know why he wouldn't have done that?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I think, again, it was my understanding that the special counsel put witnesses in front of the grand jury that said that Donald Trump had declassified certain documents, especially the ones that were, in the presidential residence at the White House. But, again, each one of these documents is going to have a story. And each one of these documents, the federal government's going to have to explain to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump couldn't have had these and shouldn't have had these. And it was illegal for him to have them. And, again, we haven't seen this indictment yet. And we're told that, I guess, there's 7 counts. And so I think a lot of it's going to be in what the indictment says and then what the evidence shows.
Are you surprised, because the president says that he was first notified, less than 36 hours ago. Are you surprised at the speed at which we found out about the indictment? I mean, how does this normally work? When you say that this is a dark day for America, give us some of the exceptions to the normalities that you see.
Well, first of all, the speed with which this investigation happened, again, we have the Hunter Biden investigations, 4.5 years, nothing has happened. We have this recent alleged bribery case when Vice President Biden, allegedly received $5 million, and that has been languishing for years. And so, it just seems like when Republicans, or especially Donald Trump, is under the wheel of investigation, that they do it with post haste and they throw all the resources on it. But when Democrats, and especially Biden family and others, are alleged to have had wrongdoing, that these investigations go nowhere. And I just, it's a two-tiered system of justice, Harris, and we've talked about this before, but this is just another example, and I think it's the worst example yet of that two-tier system of justice.
Matthew, before we move on here, I have to ask, what's he facing? Yeah. And I know we don't know the 7 counts, but you know enough about this case, yeah, and you know enough about what would have been there because we've seen pictures of the documents. I mean, yeah, some of them looked rather staged, but we've seen some of this, and we know the president has talked about it. So what could he be facing?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, a lot of this is going to be tried in the press. We're going to see leaks, continued leaks from the special counsel on what they believe their evidence is. And so, what he's facing is, a public trial ultimately. But I think, Donald Trump seems to always get stronger when challenged. These types of things that would normally melt an average human being, I think, give him strength, and he continues to fight. And, the question I have is why do we continue to have these persecutions? The Russia hoax is a prime example where they threw all the resources they possibly could and tried to prove anything they possibly could, and they never got a single charge out of that against Donald Trump. And I just see this as another example of that, where the Department of Justice is, for some reason, probably because Donald Trump isn't beholden to anybody and can actually, take this country in a better and improved direction, that's why they're going after him, because they want to stop him in this swamp, and the people that live in it are real, and they don't like Donald Trump.
Do you think that he has the legal team around him at this point that can handle all of this? Do you see him bolstering that at all? And would you want to be on it?
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time with President Trump. I just saw him in Iowa last week. He's going to have to determine whether he has the right people in the right positions, and ultimately that's his decision. I would do anything to help Donald Trump right now. I'm not, but I'm going to come on Fox News and other channels just to make sure the American people understand what this case is really about.
Matthew Whitaker, former acting Attorney General under the former president who's been indicted tonight. Thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.